Welcome back to the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. When it comes to agriculture policy, we talk a lot about water quality, soil quality, but there's some concern about policy language in Washington, D.C. regarding air quality. The Environmental Protection Agency considering a new rule that would impose stricter air standards on particulate matter known as PM 2.5. We'll get more into that in just a bit. The rule would enact significant top-down restrictions, forcing manufacturers to change their operations abruptly and without any support. Joining us to talk more about it is Brandon Ferris. He's Vice President of Energy and Resources Policy for the National Association of Manufacturers. And Brandon Kern is a farm policy expert. Thank you both for being with us here on the podcast. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Ty.
Brandon Ferris, we'll start with you. Tell us more about the National Association of Manufacturers.
So we have 14,000 members. We represent every industry across manufacturing. We represent the nearly 13 million men and women who make things in America.
I mentioned, and I kind of chuckled a little bit underneath my breath, the PM 2.5. I know you know about that like the back of your hand, but for those of us not involved as heavily in air quality at that level, what is PM 2.5 and what is the EPA trying to do in regards to it?
So PM 2.5 is particulate matter, and 2.5 is the measurement. So think about microscopic particles that you can't see, and the only time you ever notice them think about the forest fires from Canada. When you have a bunch of them together is the only time you ever notice them. Otherwise, you'll never be able to see them. What EPA has done is every 10 years or so, they redo standards on particulate matter. There's PM 2.5. There are other PMs as well. And EPA has looked at this. Right now, the current level is set at 12, and that's 12 micrograms in the air. And EPA is proposing to go all the way down to 8. And that's a pretty drastic jump down. And one of the things that we have discovered, we conducted a study with Oxford Economics on the economic impacts of this. And if they go all the way down to 8, what you're looking at is about 40% of the U.S. population that will immediately be in a non-attainment zone. And why does non-attainment matter? Non-attainment matters because if you're in non-attainment, and it's done on an annual basis, so if you are in non-attainment now, you will be until a year from now, and you're not building bridges, you're not building roads, you're not building manufacturing, and it's a severe limit on what type of agriculture you can do. Think about churning dirt. Anytime you build some type of construction, dirt's going to kick in the air. And that's PM 2.5, is those microscopic particles. And with this regulation, it has the potential to mean that 40% of the population in the U.S. isn't going to have any growth around them. It's going to have limits on agriculture around them. So we have some severe concerns with this regulation as proposed.
Brandon Kern, he mentioned the word agriculture in those concerns. What would be the impact for the agriculture industry?
Well, I think some of the concerns from the agriculture perspective, mostly broad-based when you look at overall impacts to the economy. Brandon mentioned halting infrastructure projects. So if states don't have an approved plan at the state level, federal infrastructure dollars could be stopped from going to those states for federal infrastructure projects. I think one of the things we're really worried about is the impact for energy generation and across the country. We are already struggling with energy policy that has led to pretty dramatic increases in all types of energy that farmers and agriculture uses on a daily basis. We're struggling with that input price being very, very high right now, and is driving a significant increased cost of production right now from energy. Coupling this with other policies like the CAFE standards, the vehicle emission standards, and you put something like this on top of some of the energy policies already in place that we're struggling with, and you're only going to see additional increases in energy prices. The impact to the actual production side of agriculture itself, actually planting crops, raising animals, is less certain, but it's still concerning. One of the things that states have to do is create a plan. Their state EPAs have to create a plan that shows how they're going to comply with the federal regulations. Does that mean that states start looking to things like tillage practices, at the farm level. That's not happened to this point to comply with these standards at the national level. But as they become lower and lower, and states look for more and more avenues to find that compliance, do they actually start to look at those things? I think that's a major concern from the direct production standpoint.
One thing that's kind of a sticking point for both of your organizations is prescribed burning. Either Brandon Ferris or Brandon Kern, can you describe what that is and what it means for your industries?
I'm happy to, and then Brandon can correct me whatever I say is wrong. When you look at a forest, what you want to do is you identify the areas of concern, and you'll do a prescribed burn that will later prevent the raging wildfires that we've seen. And those are important because you need to be able to manage the forest appropriately. And one of the things that this rule won't allow for, and we've seen a letter from the California delegation already because they need to do these prescribed burns, is that this rule will not allow for those. And frankly, what we've seen from the wildfires in Canada, a lot of the area of the U.S. could be taken out of attainment just because of the Canadian wildfires that the air is coming down here.
Yeah, and for agriculture, this is a really important tool. Having the ability to do prescribed burns is a very important tool for maintaining ecosystems. It helps control pests, before they become out of control. And so it's a really important tool, especially for a lot of our Western partners in the United States. And so, to take something like that off the table that helps, control healthy forests, prevent out of control forest fires, but then also has the benefit of helping control insect pests and diseases that can directly impact production agriculture, it would be a very, detrimental to have that tool taken off the table as a part of something like this.
Here in our state, there's an energy at work, a drive to help people live healthier lives with confidence. But it can't be done alone. That's why our healthcare, business, and community leaders have joined together to help people here feel more empowered by their healthcare, leading to improved long-term health and savings. A health plan for small businesses in the agricultural industry was created by the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation. It provides members the tools, resources, and financial protection to feel confident in their healthcare decisions. By sharing responsibilities, we help build healthier employees and communities, driving down costs, connecting members digitally to Anthem's diverse network of local resources, participating in health literacy, easing administrative burdens. Joining the plan means you're part of making healthcare work better, giving people the confidence to make anything possible. To learn more about how the plan can work for your business, visit our website or call your broker or Anthem sales representative.
Find out how Nationwide Agribusiness can help you grow your business. Get to know the people with the experience and knowledge to help you. Whether you are looking to protect your farm or ranch from the ground up, or need someone who understands your changing commercial ag needs. Find out how to better manage the risks of your ag business, or how quickly you can get back to business. Learn how you can protect your next with Nationwide on your side.
Brandon Ferris, when we hear about new regulations or rules being worked in Washington, many people think they're being created because manufacturers or farmers are doing something wrong. What has the manufacturing industry done proactively to improve air quality, and how do we stack up here in the U.S. compared to other countries?
That's a great question. So what we've said for years, and what we saw in our economic study when we conducted it, was that manufacturing in the U.S. is amongst the cleanest in the world. And we support smart regulations. That's certainly been a piece of it. Is manufacturers have innovated, and that's one of the reasons that air quality is so good here, as well as some of the regulations working hand in hand with government. And so we support these smart regulations. And on this PM 2.5, we're not saying don't regulate. We're saying if you go from 12 to 11, if you go from 12 to 10, that's something where we can continue to clean our air and keep these jobs. But if you go from 12 to 8, that's drastic, and you throw 40% of the population into non-attainment. So yes, manufacturers will continue to innovate, but we are amongst the cleanest in the world, and we're happy to get cleaner. We all believe in cleaner air, but there's a certain point where there's the trade-off, and the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
BK, I mentioned at the top that, we talk a lot about water quality and soil quality. Is what farmers are doing for soil and water equating to positive results as far as air quality is concerned?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of those conservation practices that we talk so much about within the agriculture community, whether it's no-till approaches to cover crops, other soil management practices on the farm. That in Ohio, a big focus of that has been on improving water quality. But as we talk about quite a bit, there are multiple benefits to a lot of those practices that farmers have been engaged in, are increasingly engaged in here in the state, and that goes for things like carbon sequestration and minimizing contributions to particulate matter, in this case on the air quality issue. So we've been making great strides in programs like the H2 Ohio program, and a lot of our federal conservation programs are really important for us to be able to continue to make progress on that front. So, but certainly, I think the agriculture industry is doing a lot here to contribute to minimizing particulate matter for better air quality.
What are next steps here, guys, for your organizations independently as far as moving the conversation forward? I know you're working directly with EPA and getting those messages there. Is this something that maybe could be a legislative process in Washington down the road where members get involved?
Absolutely. So we're expecting a final rule sometime in October. And right now, EPA is running through their process. We're weighing in with EPA. We're encouraging everyone to weigh in with their congressional delegation, because their congressional delegation can talk to EPA. They can talk to the White House. And then once this rule is finalized, if it is not finalized in an appropriate manner, then Congress can do what's called the Congressional Review Act, and they can roll the regulation back. I hope we don't have to get to that point, but we're encouraging everyone to weigh in with their congressional delegation and say, don't go down to 8. This is too far.
Yeah, likewise, from the agriculture industry standpoint, we have been on the record as part of the official comment opportunity with EPA for their rulemaking process, but then we've also been directly engaged, across the country. I know farm organizations across the country are engaging with their congressional delegation to kind of make them aware of the concerns they've outlined during that comment period, and encouraging Congress to keep a close eye on this, that if EPA doesn't come up with a more reasonable approach, it may require congressional action this fall or into the winter. So it's something that we're keeping a close eye on. And right now we're just kind of waiting on US EPA to see if they're going to, take the advice and the feedback from industry stakeholders.
A lot at stake, not just from a manufacturer or agricultural level, but also all the way down to the consumer level. And all Americans should be keeping an eye on this in one way, shape, or form. Brandon Ferris, Vice President of Energy and Resources Policy for National Association of Manufacturers. Brandon Kern, a farm policy expert. Appreciate your expertise on this topic and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, anytime, Ty.